Welcome everyone to another IDEAChatCNY. It's your host Scott Friedberg. We're coming in live from the IDEA headquarters. IDEAChatCNY is a live web series at Syracuse University, and it's dedicated to helping budding entrepreneurs and thought leaders all over the globe. We do interviews with awesome people doing amazing things so you can get the advice you need to launch successful ideas or land great jobs. In the past, we've covered topics related to startups, tech, design, media, and more. Before we bring on our guest, I want to invite you all to use the hashtag IDEAChatCNY on Twitter to send in questions or comments. You can also submit questions with the blue button below or comment in the live chat feed on the right. Also, just be sure to follow at IDEACUS to stay up to date on the latest news, trends, and more happening in Central New York and beyond. Today, we'll be talking with a good friend of mine, Zion Kim, and we'll be talking about how he was able to overcome some adversity in the start of his college career to accomplish his goals and achieve success. So a little background on Zion. Zion's a serial entrepreneur. I actually met him a couple of years ago at the start of a new co-working space called Juice Tank in New Jersey. He's also a digital marketing guru. He knows digital marketing like it's the back of his hand. He formerly was an organizer of one of New Jersey's largest tech meetups and was an accelerator for New Jersey's largest co-working space. So, without further ado, let's meet Zion.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey,
Or
Zion.
Scott?
Always a pleasure to see you.
No, of course. Thank you so much for having me. And
So,
hi to you, Dee.
so before we get started, let's hear your story. Let's hear it from the beginning.
Okay, so the whole story about this the dorm room antics. So my first semester, my freshman year, I got in a ridiculous amount of trouble. Most of them all alcohol related. So I got kicked out of my first dorm, and then soon after, got placed into my second dorm. Got kicked out of that one. Almost got kicked out of housing altogether. And then, so I basically lived in three different dorms over the course of my first two semesters. And the same week that I got word that I was getting kicked out of my dorm, I also got booted from the business school. So yeah, so I did come into school in the marketing program, in the business school. Did not do anything my first semester freshman year, except just I just wanted to meet people and party and just have fun. So yeah, so that was pretty much a lot of news for me in 1 week. It was a very depressing time, and I didn't quite know what to do, but I bounced back that first semester, and then I bounced back after the first semester, and then surprisingly enough, I did it all over again the semester after that. So I ended up failing all my classes the following fall semester. So I don't know if this is like a fall semester trend, but um, yeah, but right
Yes,
after,
something like that.
yeah, so I failed all my classes. At that point, I probably had like a 1.x GPA, and yeah, and then the semester after that, that's when I started my first business. So that's pretty much, and I left out a lot of details in between, but I'll let everyone else guess on their own for those.
All right, sounds good. So, I mean, you always hear about entrepreneurs, being rebels and whatnot, and clearly your college career and the beginning to your adult life, it didn't start off so smoothly. It wasn't a clear path, and I bet a lot of people would have expected you to continue on that path. So, what was it about the adversity that you experienced that was able to change your mentality and behavior? And do you think there's a correlation between what you were then and where you're able to get yourself now?
Um, yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess at that point in my life, there were so many people that gave up on me, including, all those counselors that were more than happy to place me out of all the dorms, and then all my academic advisors who just saw me kind of failing, right after another. So at that point, I really felt that I had something to prove, I guess, and because I always said that, oh, don't worry, if I tried in school, I could totally do well, but who's gonna believe me after all that? and then the same semester, the same semester that I was trying to bounce back from another bad GPA, I decided to take more on my plate more than ever. So, um, so at that point, I was actually just elected the president of my fraternity. I was launching my first business, Easy Greek, which is in the custom apparel space, specifically clothing for fraternities and sororities. And then I was also taking a full course load. And then, of course, also still try to maintain social life and try to, keep to it with my friends. So I think the biggest thing that taught me was, you know, you just learn. You just learn from everything. And even if everyone's against you, you just got to do it if you really want to.
So was there some sort of, event that happened or a day where you woke up and you just decided you wanted to flip the switch, or what, do you think it just kind of happened naturally? Could you pinpoint something?
Um, Yeah, I mean, so I was on academic probation as it was. So, at that point there was just, well, let me take a few steps back. So I was actually working for this other store that did Greek clothing. So it was a matter of opportunity, and they wanted to actually develop a website, and that's why they hired me in the first place. It was an e-commerce site because they sold Rutgers apparel and Greek clothing. So they wanted to put the Rutgers apparel online, and they had no idea how to do it. And just by chance, I met the manager through this person that I met at a party, and uh, of course, right? And then we just started talking, and she's like, "Yeah, we actually, need this website made." And I told her that I could do it at the time, and I absolutely had no clue how to do it, so I actually lied to get my first job. So then, fast forward a couple months later, I Googled my way to figuring it out, and we did get it up. It was generating some revenue for the store, and then yeah, he eventually just said that he was tired of running the business and wanted to close. So I just said, okay, well, where are all these people going to go, right? So that was when I kind of made my first decision, not necessarily knowing what exactly I wanted to do, but the manager at the time wanted to become my new business partner. So I was pretty confident that we were going to be able to do this because, hey, she was running the store for the last 4 years. So, what could possibly go wrong, right? Like, I had her expertise to tap into, and then, of course, fast forward a month after we did all the planning and figuring out of what we wanted to do. Um, Very high level, by the way, very high level. We didn't have a business plan. We didn't come up with any financial projections or anything like that because I didn't know how to do that at the time. So yeah, she just went and got a job and left me on my own. So, at that point, I was still wanting to do it because I was coming off another bad semester. I was a pretty bad point in my life, and um, like, this isn't really the way that I want to live my life. This isn't what I was meant to do. Not that, Greek clothing is necessarily the most crazy thing out there, but I wanted to do something, and I wanted to put something out in the world, and it's just making the decision to do it.
All right, awesome. So, I mean, not to cut right to the end of that story, but Easy Greek was clearly an integral part of your career. It kind of launched you into this world. But one thing I know is that you ended up shutting it down. And I've heard, I've had conversations on top of conversations, and people really struggle with making the decision of when it's time to shut down their business that they've been working day in and day out on. So how'd you come to that decision? And what advice would you have for other people that may be in that same spot and they're unsure if it's time to say goodbye or not?
Yeah. So so when I first started, like I said, it was a moment of opportunity. It wasn't necessarily something that I was necessarily really, really passionate about, right? It's just because I had the opportunity to do it, so I said, why not? So, but then when you kind of start off, when you're kind of in the motions and you're going through it, it becomes your baby, right? Like your startup, your company, no matter what, it is your baby. It's called founder's love. If anyone else thinks it's a terrible idea, you'll shut them right down because you're like, hey, I'm working on this. I'm all about it. But it came to a point where I guess it was like a couple things that happened. Where the first thing is, there was a period of my life after I started everything, and the business was actually taking off. The fraternity was doing better, and I was doing way better in school. But but like I just felt ridiculously empty inside, and I had no idea why until Ankur, who's actually the founder of Kairos, right? He came to speak to our class, and he said that if you're just trying to chase money, then you're never going to be happy. You're never going to quite get what you want, and you really won't be successful, right? And I've heard that a million times before, but the next thing he said was, money is a byproduct of solving a problem. So if you solve a problem and you really think of how you can help someone, then the money will come. And that to me was so simple because I mean that's as far as I was concerned, that's like the secret to success, right? And then
Mhm.
that's when it kind of dawned on me that everything that I was doing was very unfulfilling, and I never really thought about fulfillment in terms of relating it to that void that I had inside. And I just realized, hey, if I disappeared off the face of the earth tomorrow and Easy Greek closed down, how many people would really notice? So that was, so that's kind of when the seed got planted in my head. But then a couple semesters after that, when we were just like, we just had our best season ever in terms of revenue. Like we grew the business for a ridiculous, to a ridiculous point where we're actually backed up in production for 2 months. And I was so ridiculously stressed out during that entire time where um, my quality of life was just being affected. It was just like I was sleeping every 2 days. I was just stressed out all the time because my phone wouldn't stop ringing. And it's like, do I really want to do this anymore? Is this something that I really want to live? Is this something that I really want to be doing? And then it just came to the decision of, well, yeah, I really don't want to do this because if it's a matter of really, sacrificing my own health for something I was ridiculously passionate about, maybe I could justify that, but it wasn't. So,
So when it came down to it, I mean, Easy Greek wasn't something that you were passionate about. It was an opportunity for you to get into the business world and probably a really big one for you, but just deep down, it wasn't for you.
right. Yeah, it wasn't for me, um, and we were solving a problem. Clearly we were definitely solving a problem, but was it really a meaningful problem? And not really sure. So I
All right.
stopped after that.
I could totally agree with that. So you're one of those people that I met a couple of years ago, and I would never be surprised to see you on the headline of a newspaper. You know, I have, the utmost respect for you, and like I said, I mean, everything you do amazes me. But one
I
thing, one
appreciate
thing,
that.
yeah, one thing that I think you did is you were able to break into the startup scene um, with a little bit of a piggyback on noticing that there was a void and there wasn't really a scene in New Jersey, and I think you sort of created that. It's obviously very attractive right now to be an entrepreneur and to be in the startup scene. So, what advice would you give to someone who wants to get in? Because there's definitely some sort of barrier there. So, what would be your one piece of advice to get someone started?
Um, so I think the question that I get the most from a lot of student entrepreneurs specifically is how did you start, number one, and number two, how did you possibly start in school, right?
Mm,
And the answer that I always give them is if not now, when? There's always going to be something in your life that's always going to get in the way. Later down the road, you're going to have family to care about. You're going to have so much more risk with so many more people relying on you that it's only going to get riskier and riskier as the years go on. And every single time you think about wanting to do something, you can make a list of a million different reasons for why or why not you're going to do something. But you can read down that list and you start to realize that none of it really matters that much, and a lot of it is just um, they're just almost like excuses, right? They're just reasons why you're kind of holding yourself back. So what I tell people is you just have to start. And I heard something really, really interesting the other day from another speaker that he related entrepreneurship to the Newton's first law, right? And which of course is um, an object in motion stays in motion, an object at rest stays at rest unless acted on by an outside force. So it's just like if you just make the decision to start, amazing, amazing things will start to happen. And that's followed by my second favorite quote, which is when you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it happen. So just saying that you're going to start and committing to it and just being like, hey, today or tomorrow, this is what I'm gonna do, and every single day I'm just going to do my best to move the needle on it. Everything around you just starts to fall into place. Opportunities open up like no other as long as you're in that mindset, because now you're scanning the world with a completely different lens than you ever have before. And you're able to recognize opportunities for opportunities, whereas in the past, you might have just overlooked them, right? Like that one person that you talk to, you never know what kind of doors they could open. But in the past, you may have never talked to that person because it's like, hey, what could I possibly get from trying to open up this relationship? So, you know, so for students, it's just like just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely agree with that. I mean, I would put it in a way, just get out there and start talking to people. Um, and you'd be surprised what you can learn, just like what you said, or what type of opportunities can come from it.
Right.
So earlier I called you I think it was digital marketing guru. So to kind of live up to that title, let's give some of the viewers just one quick piece of advice that they could take and implement in their digital marketing, whether it be personal or for business.
Okay. Um, Oh, did you also want me to answer this question? How do you inspire people to take the first step?
Yeah,
Okay. My answer to that is I think inspiration is kind of like it's a really interesting thing because that's all it is, right? It can, for the moment or in the moment, it can kind of raise your dopamine levels, make you really happy, make you feel really motivated, but without that intrinsic motivation from within, without you actually making that decision from within, it doesn't mean anything. If there's anything I learned, you can sit week after week trying to inspire someone, but if they're just not about it, if they're not passionate about it, and that they don't realize how it aligns with their own life goals or their own interests, then they're just never going to do it. So, what I would tell people is if you really want to do something and you are passionate about it, then, you'll love every moment of it. So just start. But if the reason why you're starting is because, maybe you're really not that interested, then maybe you really have no place to start. Because
yeah,
it's
no,
really, because then you're just in for a world of struggle after that. Because the only thing that's going to get you through those times when you really, really want to give up is, your passion and your own self motivation has to come from within. But um, yeah, but for your second question, I think the biggest question that I get, and with respect to social media, is Zion, how do I get people to share my stuff, right? Because obviously, I post something, Scott shares it to his network, and then, maybe Dee shares it to her network, and all of a sudden, that's how you get this expansive network reach, right?
right.
So, so then, but then you also have, but then you kind of have to take a step back, and I always ask them, well, go look at your own Facebook profile right now, Scott, right? Like, if I were to take a look at your Facebook profile, I would have a pretty good idea of the type of person that you are, right?
Yeah, I agree.
And your Facebook profile, just like any one of your social profiles, is essentially your digital identity. Like that is Scott online. And it's a curated identity where you have made a conscious decision to validate a certain part of yourself, where you kind of open up a certain level of vulnerability about yourself, where it's like, okay, Scott's a Giants fan, maybe, I don't know. And I want to put that out into the world so that other people know that I'm also this Giants fan. They also want to know that I'm this other person that is interested in these things, or maybe I want to be known as a funny person or whatever it is. So then it's like, okay, well, so then knowing that fact, would you share any of the stuff that you're posting to your own, your own social media pages, to your own profile? And the answer I usually get is no, right? So then when you're kind of thinking of the person that you're really marketing for, right? So if we're doing something where we're trying to market to a college student, what will get that college student to take whatever you're giving them to put it on their own profile? And that's really the question that you have to ask is, why should I care? Why should that person care enough to do that? And then you also have to realize that content or anything that you're posting, whether it's a video, a link, an image, it's all social capital, right? Every single thing that exchanges hands in the social web is through that content, because that's how we identify with ourselves. So if you really just take that concept and start to understand and answer the question, why should I care, for your target market or your target audience, then they will respond. And so I think that's really foundational to know about social media before you do anything, right? And then everything after that is just techniques and tactics and whatever. But you really have to understand what it's like to walk a day in the life of your target market, every single one of their problems, everything they might be interested in, and then build out that persona specifically. Right. It's a lot of empathy. Because if you don't know the problems of who you're selling to, then what the hell are you doing, right? So
So it comes down to really making sure that the content that you're putting out there, it's adding value to your market.
right, and it's also, um, if your content's going to help your friends seem like they're funnier, right? Like everyone, there's a lot of people that want to be known as, hey, I'm that guy that posts funny things, or I'm that guy that posts political things. It's
Right.
really helping
Absolutely.
them to curate and build their own identity.
Cool. All right, so I think this is kind of a good segue. You're working on two projects right now, the Atlas project and Are You Screwed? Specifically, I think the last question that we just spoke about relates almost 100% to Are You Screwed? And let's hear a little bit about that, and also let's hear about the Atlas project because I haven't even really had the opportunity to talk with you about the Atlas project. And then tell me,
Sure.
why you chose those and why you are where you are right now.
So interesting story about Are You Screwed is that we actually had to take a little break from it recently. But when I first spoke to you, we were running it pretty full time just to see what kind of to see if it would pick up or not. And when we first started it, it was actually 2 years ago, and I was always very, very happy whenever I got on it, because we were essentially just answering the questions of a lot of transitioning freshmen, right? So freshmen that were seniors in high school that were just about to come into their freshman year of Rutgers had absolutely no idea what was going on, and people just kept asking all these questions online. So we just decided to start answering them on this blog. And I had no idea, how to run a blog or anything like that, but we just started writing and putting this content out. Next thing you know, we're getting thousands and thousands of hits with people messaging us, just thanking us, for all these different things. And I was just amazed, right? And it was just that to me was such an amazingly fulfilling thing, because we were making a significant difference in all these people's lives, because we now have credit for, you know, integrating thousands and thousands of freshmen into Rutgers, which is an amazing thing. And then, fast forward to today. Um, Back then, what I didn't necessarily hold that dear that I do now, in terms of just my principles, is I'm a really huge advocate of mentorship, right? Because I think that every single one of us, every single person, knows a little bit more than someone else does
Hmm.
on anything, right? And if we can share that little something with another person and really share it forward with that other person and save them from a world of struggle, then how much better off could they possibly be? And that's really what, RE Screwed is really all about in terms of the aspect of mentorship and just trying to pass our experiences along, right? To transition and not only to survive college, but to transition into your professional career. Because now that I've had all this experience, I wanted to kind of give that back. And I was actually speaking to my roommate, and I was like, and I had a conversation with him one day. I was like, you know, I really want to be able to help as many students as I possibly can. And I just want to do as many speaking engagements as possible, right? Because I thought that was the way. And he's like, well, wouldn't the best way for you to do that, wouldn't it just be to start writing again, right? Because that's really the fastest way that you're going to be able to scale that.
Right.
So, so I was like, wow, you're totally right. And then fast forward to today, we started that blog again at the end of last year. We brought it up to about 100,000 visitors in the first month, which is
It's
fantastic,
incredible.
right?
Yeah.
Um, articles got shared ridiculous amount of times, thousands and thousands of views. Never experienced anything like it.
Mhm.
And we even got articles that got picked up by, so I actually wrote an article on New Year's resolutions, um, and that was actually a response to another article I saw on Elite Daily. Uh, so Elite Daily is like a site for different millennials, and I was reading their New Year's resolutions post, and I was like, "This is the advice that you're gonna give to the next generation." And so, I just like wrote up this list, and then I copied and pasted it into the blog post, the blog comments of that post, and then next thing I know, the next day they deleted it, and they reached out to me and they're like, "Hey, Zion, like we actually really like this. Can we post it?" I was like, "Sure." And and then next thing you know, the next couple of days, the article probably got shared like over 2,000 times with like 40,000 different Facebook interactions, and I just know that over 100,000 people probably saw that article. Right, it was an amazing, experience because I had so many people reaching out to me after the fact. Like for my one friend, she's like, "Hey, my friend from England just shared your article to her profile. Just let that sink in."
Yeah.
And that didn't sink in for a while, right? Because it was so surreal. But that's really the power of, of writing, of mentorship through writing, as well as the power of the, social media, right? So I don't even remember the question. What was it?
Yeah, so I wanted to hear a little bit about both Are You Screwed and the Atlas
Okay,
project.
okay.
And just
Um,
going off what you said, I didn't realize this because we have spoken about Are You Screwed before, and it seems
right.
like it's not just a challenge for you. It seems like it's actually something you're passionate about doing. I didn't realize that. It's very cool. So yeah, let's
Yeah,
want to move on to the Atlas project.
yeah. So the one thing that I learned about my experience with Are You Screwed was probably the fact that I learned that I really, really liked helping people, right? So when I was kind of talking to my partner, who, we were just having this like we had this conversation for maybe 5 hours the first time we met,
Mhm.
and all I told him was, the only reason I'm not starting a company right now is just because there's nothing I care enough about to just
Right.
drop everything that I'm doing and just do that full time.
Mhm.
But even if I did start a company, I wouldn't want to launch something like the next Angry Birds or next, I guess, Flappy Bird now or whatever it is. I would want to do something a lot more meaningful, right? I want to be able to actually make a meaningful impact on as many people's lives as I possibly could, in as many countries as I possibly could. And I thought, okay, well, that's kind of like this big, big goal, right? So how do we really do that? And then I thought, okay, well, the entrepreneur, right? Entrepreneurs are already trying to solve these problems, and they're already making differences in the world. They're the ones that are, day in, day out in the trenches, really, really just trying to do everything that they can to make the world a better place. But if entrepreneurs are the ones that are trying to solve the problems of the world, then who's solving their problems, right?
Mm.
Because if any entrepreneur out there knows, entrepreneurs are the people with the most problems. So how do we kind of make that a little bit easier? So we said, okay, well, let's start this company where we can essentially become an extension of their team, become their technology partner, become their development partner, and really, come in as their technical co-founder and help them, from whatever idea that they have to help them launch their product. So today we work with startups and companies to develop software applications for web and mobile using a design focused but market based approach. Because we want, again, we want to make sure that we're building stuff that people actually care about, that people will actually use. So that's what we
So,
do at the Atlas project.
so are you particular about which startups you'll work with? Are there specific ones that you prefer to work with, or are you pretty open?
Um, so so one thing I forgot to mention is that side by side, while we're kind of doing this consulting company, we also want to kind of incubate our own ideas. So
Okay,
um, so if anyone has a good idea, let me know because I don't have any. But but
we can talk
yeah, so
later.
we're yeah, but so we're that's the reason why we're doing it is so that we can kind of finance ourselves. So as far as the types of startups that we want to work with, I can't say that we'll choose one over the other, but if it's if you're really trying to put something out there that we think is going to do well, then by all means we'll work with you on it. But when you first pitch us and talk to us about your idea, we're not going to be the ones that just nod our head and be like, oh yeah, that sounds great, just so we could take your
Right.
money and build it, right? Because no one wins in that scenario if you're built, because we don't, the world has enough noise and enough crappy products and terrible startups getting funded or whatever it is. So we need to make sure that we're doing something really, really meaningful. And if it's not meaningful, I think that uh, it should at least be really entertaining, right? Like it's going to be, as you need that. You need fun in your life. It needs to be either really entertaining, really inspiring. Maybe it needs to connect people, or maybe even needs to like help educate people. But um, so I think that if it falls within those criteria, which is like essentially just how do you add value to someone's life, then we would love to work on it. But um, yeah, but right now we're just kind of taking them as they come, listening to the ideas that come, and we're just and again we really want to make sure that they know what they're in store for before they kick off the relationship with us.
Yeah, so definitely transparent. But again, the common theme that has been going on here is that, when it comes down to it, for you, it's all about making a difference and doing things that are going to be meaningful for others, probably lots of others, maybe not even just one person. And I think that's really cool, and it's absolutely admirable. But let's take a moment right now and answer some questions that our viewers might have. I know I had a lot of questions, but I'll save them. Let's give them a shot.
Sure.
So the first question is from D, and she says, "Do you feel like school got in the way of your startup?" And hold on, let me read on. And if so, what do you think your university could have done to help you or prepare you?
So getting kicked out of the business school did not help because some of those classes could have probably helped me at the time.
Right.
But as far as school getting in the way, yes, it did, to a certain extent, because it just takes time, right? You get those professors who will take off points for you not being there, will give you like participation points, attendance points, and I
Yeah,
did
they're
my
nervous.
best.
How could they expect that?
Yeah, and I did my best to avoid those professors like the plague. And but every now and then, I came across those professors, and they gave me a really hard time. And funny enough, it was actually one of my entrepreneurship professors who probably gave me the hardest time. Otherwise, I think that people should never underestimate the amount of resources that they have available to them in a university setting, right? Like you are in the highest concentration of intellect. You're surrounded by some of the top researchers around the world on any given topic. You're surrounded by some of the most motivated people you'll ever meet. And as far as students go, they're the people that are passing out on the street today, but next week, you never know where they're going to end up. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity as long as you know how to leverage your resources at school. But otherwise, if you're not leveraging those opportunities, then yeah, school is definitely going to be a waste of time. But if you're committed to finishing school, then you also have to realize, because this was the hardest thing for me, was coming to appreciate, my own education, right? Like trying to just take these classes and trying to figure out how it falls in line with my business because I just invested so much negative emotion into just
Mm.
dread, right? Just like, wow, I have to do school. I have to do this. And that was when school became so difficult. But then as soon as I really embraced it and said, well, let's just see what I can get out of it, then it just became that much easier.
So just
And I guess,
more specifically, and I
yeah,
sort of have
so
an idea on this, but yeah, what ways can the schools help entrepreneurs in a specific, like what maybe one or two ways where the schools can help?
right. So I think that it depends on the school that you're going to. A lot of schools right now have very much embraced entrepreneurship, and there's a lot of resources, whether it's funding or mentorship or space or whatever it is. Otherwise, if your school's not too heavy on the entrepreneurship, then just reach out to your professors, right? Like go look up the professors in the different departments, see, because everyone did something before they got there, and really talk to them and figure out, and try to tap into and expand through their networks, because professors know a lot of people as long as you get the right one. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but I would say it really depends.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Okay. I may have missed it, but what is your definition of a startup? And do you work with a team or teams for your personal ventures?
Yeah, so my definition of a startup is this entity that is trying to figure out what they're doing, right? Because when you're first starting off, you're basically starting off with a bucket of hypotheses that you're kind of trying to validate as you go through the startup process. You're trying to figure out who your customer is. If you don't even know who that is, you're trying to figure out what your value proposition is, and of course, you're trying to figure out what your business model is, right? Because at the end of the day, you still have to make money, or else, I mean, of course, unless you're like Instagram, but but a lot of these kind of like user-based companies are very much like unicorns, right? So you really have to understand what value you're providing, and I think that as soon as you have a repeatable process for how to keep generating that value and how that translates into a potential revenue model for yourself, that's when you actually have a company. Otherwise, you're always a startup. And then a lot of other folks talk about always being in startup mode, which is, you're always just trying to iterate on every single thing that you possibly can. You're always trying to be better. You never feel like you're quite finished, and you never feel like you're quite uh, hitting that cap, right? So, so I think like companies like Facebook, I think consider themselves like the forever startup.
Right.
But then the second half of that question is, uh, do I work in teams? Absolutely. There is, if there is an entrepreneur that ever said that they did it by themselves, they're lying. They're absolutely lying because it's not true. Every single person that is successful is because they had amazing people around them. And if you don't have those people that are supporting you, that can help you, then you're never going to get anywhere. Because quite frankly, I'm not very good at a lot of things, and and if I didn't have those people to kind of fulfill those weaknesses for me, I would not have made it very far. But I think it also takes an entrepreneur to take a step back, evaluate themselves, and really figure out what they suck at, right? Because those are the first people that you have to find.
All right, yeah, I
Yeah,
think
this is
that's
obvious.
great.
Yeah, yeah, so you're gonna hear it time and time again, right? That an entrepreneur's job is not to execute on an idea by himself. It's to surround himself with the smartest people he possibly can so that he can go and execute that idea. And you have to go and convince people, go, you know, make them cookies or whatever it's going to take.
Definitely. And people always say that investors, as much importance as the idea has, they're investing in the team and their confidence in the ability of the team to execute. So yeah, I
Right.
definitely agree with that. So this has been great, Zion, always is, but we're running out of time. Any last words of wisdom for the viewers? This is a tough one.
Okay. Yeah. Um, oh, okay. So that's a good one. Why don't I end with this? This has been really bothering me lately. So
Okay.
there are a lot of people that are very they feel a lot of ownership over their ideas, right?
Okay.
So when someone like reaches out to me for help, they're like, oh, Zion, can you help me with this? And I say, sure. What's your idea? And they're like, well, I can't really give it away, but we're trying to kind of do this. And I'm like, dude, honestly, you think I really care about your idea where I'm going to drop everything that I'm doing right now to go and work on it? Because really, quite frankly, no one cares, right? It's like ideas are worth, maybe like 20 bucks at most, but it's all in the execution. And by sharing your idea with as many people as you potentially can, you're going to really start to elicit that feedback, and you're going to start, you might start to validate your market, because the more you talk to people about your idea, they might say, hey, your idea is really stupid. Or or some people might be like, hey, there's actually not really a market for that. Or some people might, so sharing your idea might actually save you from a world of trouble, because I've been down that path a couple of times. So basically, bottom line, if you have an idea, talk about it with as many people as you possibly can, or else you're never going to get anywhere.
Good choice. That was a good way to leave off. Thank you, Zion. So that wraps up another Idea Chat CNY. Follow Zion on Twitter at ZionK20, and visit his website of the Atlas Project. It's atlasproject.co. So keep the conversation going on Twitter using the hashtag IdeaChatCNY and tag at IdeaCuse. We'll see you next time on Idea Chat CNY. Thank you, Zion.
Oh, thanks a lot, Scott. Peace out, everyone.